In 1812, a Swedish man was exploring the country of Jordan. He was about 150 miles south of Jerusalem when he came across the remnants of what appeared to be an ancient city. In 1929, so over 100 years later, archaeologists began to formally excavate the site. And they found that it dated back to the 4th century BC. Now, looking at the amazing and intricate design of the face of this rock, it would be pretty difficult to believe that this actually occurred through the process of water erosion. My name is Brie Collison, and we are on week 5 of a series called Secrets of the Ancient Text. We have been in a summer of exploration and discovery, and our mission is to uncover the answer to the question, what is truth? In week 1, we discovered a document called P52, which was a fragment of the book of John that asked that question, what is truth? And so we continue to uncover that today. We do something here called Q&R, question and response. So if throughout this morning you have any questions about what I'm saying or you feel like I have overlooked something, please, you can text those in using the Reality Church app. You can scan the QR code in the seat back in front of you if you don't have that, and you can ask questions through there. So there's a severe misunderstanding in our world when it comes to the occurrence of the point of this entire thing, right? The point of life. And although I'm not going to tell you the meaning of life today, although that would be very cool of me, we are going to kind of fight back against misunderstandings with how all of this came to be, with the foundation of our world, the creation of our world. As a young girl, and still today, my favorite place in the world is my grandparents' house. Back behind their house, there's this wide paved path that goes all the way back into the woods. And for as long as I've visited their home, I walked to the end of that path to where the stop sign is, if you can see it. And I would stand here and I would look up between the leaves or the branches, and I would watch the sun kind of dance through the tops of the trees. And it was there that I started to feel, even as a young child, that there was something bigger than me, something bigger than the trees, something bigger out there. I knew that there was more to this moment than just this moment. But I grew, as many of us do, hearing all of these ways in which this world came to be, whether it was through classes that we took or things we saw on TV or articles that we read, things that would suggest that this universe was created pretty randomly, that everything that we see around us just kind of happened. But there's a consequence to thinking that all of this is random, right? If everything is random, then that means that nothing is orderly. Nothing is organized. So we have to take back anything that would suggest that there's order or organization in our world. That means that we have to eliminate things like love and joy. We have to eliminate morality and justice, because none of it means anything. It boils us down to just organisms that are responding to the stimuli of the world around us. It eliminates all of the meaning. So basically, we're here, we die, the end. The world's just random. But the thing is that scientists have spent thousands of years, and I know that it's thousands of years because I Googled the phrase, how old is science? And the number was in the thousands. It's a true story, because we all have our faults. They've spent thousands of years uncovering the logic in our world. So the building blocks of everything around us, atoms and cells, DNA and DNA sequencing, even patterns and ratios in our world, like the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio. There's logic and order. They've also uncovered for us this harmony that exists within the world. The food chain, as unharmonious as it seems, it does show us how nature basically takes care of itself and provides everything that we need. Or pollination is one of my favorite harmonies in the earth. There's also the fact that we stand in the sun and our bodies release dopamine just through sunlight. Just through that simple act of being outside, your body creates joy, whether you're trying or not. And in our world, I don't think we have to do too much looking into this one. We see creativity. I see it in this room. Every one of your faces looks different. All across the world, faces look different. Even twins, identical twins, aren't identical. Or we see flowers. We see leaves. We see the beauty in all of those details. Or how about the fact that there are 8.7 million species of animals in the world, all of them different, all unique, all with their own purpose? Creativity. And regardless of how any of us think the world came to be, it is widely accepted that however it came through something very powerful. So in our world, we see logic, we see harmony, we see creativity, and we see that all of this came from power, from something powerful. Now, these things don't suggest randomness. They actually point us in the opposite direction, toward logic and order. If these things are true, then it would be safe to say that everything came from something that was pretty genius, pretty sophisticated, thoughtful. This world was designed. Now, in week 1 of this series, we concluded that we can trust the Bible as a historical text. And if you missed week 1, I would encourage you to go to reality.church and just get caught up. It was a really good sermon. You'll learn a ton, and you'll understand why this is foundational for what we're talking about today. So I'm going to start in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. Well, verse 2, but verse 1, I think we all know. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But we're going to take a look at verse 2. It says, the earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. I'm going to read that again, but this time I want you to close your eyes and try to engage your senses. What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? Try to put yourself in that space. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of those waters. Maybe to you this seems cold or feels empty, scary. Maybe it's peaceful. You can open your eyes. But in Genesis, we go on and we see God create day and night, create the sky, the land, the sea. So he's created a habitat for us. And then he puts things into that habitat. So he creates vegetation that reproduces. He puts the sun and the moon in the sky to separate day and night. He starts to give us time. Then he puts animals in the sky, on the land, and in the sea. And lastly, he creates humans. This chapter, by the way, I wish I could just stand and read to you because it's this beautiful story of the beginning of our world, a story that God wrote for us. And it has this childlike kind of storybook repetition. It feels very comforting. And I have felt really moved by the story as I've read it leading up to today. So I just want to encourage you sometime this week, sit down, sit outside with this, and just read it. It's just good. I think, especially those of us who have grown up knowing this story, we don't tend to sit down and actually read it. So I just want to encourage you to do that. But a lot of people have become overly concerned, I would say, with the how of this story. Whoop. How is God counting the days here? How is there light if God hasn't made the sun? How is there water if God hasn't made the sea yet, right? There's all of these hows. And those questions aren't bad. They're actually super good. And you should ask those questions, and you should seek the answers. You should do research. You should talk with your life group. You should talk with the people around you. Absolutely. But the problem with these questions is that they miss the point of the creation story. Because the creation story isn't about the how, it's about the who. So think back to that image of this dark, formless nothingness from verse 2, right? So we see now that from formless came logic, from chaos came harmony, from darkness came beauty. Logic, harmony, creativity. And I know that it sounds silly to say, I don't know how you could look at the world and not see that God exists. not understand that God is all around us. But I think it's because once you see it, you can't unsee it. There are tons of beautiful things in the world, like the aurora borealis, the colorful mountains of China, the pink lake of Australia. All of these occur in our world. We see all of these naturally in our world. And there's reasons that each one of these things happens or looks the way that it looks, but who made the reasons? Who? Every brilliant work of art is the result of someone's genius, right? The Mona Lisa demands that we applaud Da Vinci for capturing her mystery. Toto will forever be known as the group that brought us the greatest song of all time, Africa. Every design has a designer. If we look at our surroundings, we would be foolish to not know, or at least want to know, who designed it all. And Paul wrote about this way back in 57 AD. He was writing to the Romans, and he said, "For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and the sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God." He's telling us creation, nature, points directly to God. And it should be a clue to you that he's there. Guys, everything in creation screams at us the creativity and the power of God. He's saying here, and we can say today, listen to the birds sing, listen to children laugh as they play outside, pet a sheep, taste a honeysuckle, smell a mint leaf. All of it is powerful, all of it is divine, and all of it is a gift for us. And we take all the pleasure in the world around us, right? We snowboard, we hike, we mountain climb, we stargaze. We compost and then watch our gardens grow and watch our tomatoes ripen. We take all the pleasure in the world and then turn around and dismiss its importance. Dismiss its creation, dismiss its brilliance as something that just randomly happened. Isaiah begs this answer of who as well when he says, "Who else has held the oceans in his hand? Who has measured off the heavens with his fingers? Who else knows the weight of the earth or has weighed the mountains and hills on a scale?" Who? Because the creation story begs us to ask who. Creation screaming, "I am logical, I am harmonious, I am created, and I was created by something powerful." I said in the beginning that it would be difficult to believe that this occurred naturally through water erosion. Only a couple of you giggled, but I want you to know that you were right. Because of course, this was not something that came about through water, through erosion. This is something that was planned, was designed, was built, was created. This is one of the buildings in the city of Petra, in Petra, Jordan. And this ancient town was carved out, I would say. I don't want to say built, I think carved, by the Nabateans in the 4th century BC. And when you look at the intricacies of this, and when you learn more about the city, it was a trade city. This is in the desert, right? They had pools, like, for relaxing. Like, this was kind of a bougie ancient town. And when you see the intricacies of this design, of these carvings, the planning that it has to take, the creativity it has to take, you see it and you want to know who. You want to know how, but really you want to know who. Who could do this? Who could accomplish this? Because every house has a builder, but the one who created everything, the one who built everything is God. He's logical, he's harmonious, he's creative, he's powerful. And he created this world as a gift to you so that you can know him more. Standing in the woods at my grandparents' house was the first place where I encountered God, where he started to show me that there was more, where he started to make me curious about him. And I've gone there to meet him many, many times since then. He's dwelling within his creation. He's calling you to look closer, come closer, dig deeper. Come and know me. Discover me. Discover how thoughtful I am. Discover how much I have planned and paid attention to every detail. And when you see that, and when you realize how much love he has poured into every detail, when you see how much he loves his creation, you'll see that he loves you too. He loves you more. If God cares so wonderfully for wildflowers that are here today and thrown in the fire tomorrow, if he cares to make the lilies of the valley so beautiful, if he cares to feed the birds as they travel from one place to another, he will certainly care for you. Truly and deeply, he will care for you. Everything that the idea of randomness steals from us, right? We talked about love, joy, morality, justice. God returns all of those things to us. And so where we see a lack of those things in our world is where we see a lack of people who know and trust God. Randomness, the idea that all of this is random, it has its consequences. The acknowledgement of God and a relationship with him, that has consequences too, but they're really, really good consequences. So if we know all of these things, what do? This one might be obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. First of all, I think we need to go outside. Have you guys heard of this thing called grounding? It's where you stand barefoot in the grass or you lay in the grass. And it's supposed to be kind of meditative, and it relieves stress, and it raises your dopamine levels and all of that. Have you heard of this? Does that just sound like being outside? Am I the only one that just thinks that's stepping outside of your house and being in nature? Like, we're so far away from nature, so far from the world that God put us in the beginning, right? He created the habitat. He put us into the habitat. We're now like gimmicking ourselves to get outside. We're trending our way back to where we were supposed to be from square one. But there's no gimmick. That's how it should be. And I know that this world is kind of industrial, and sometimes we don't trust what's going on around us, but there is still opportunity to go and to meet with God, or to meet with his creation at the very least, to go out into nature. So whether you're laying on the grass, you're finding shapes in the clouds, or maybe at night you're watching the bats fly around without running into each other, which I truly find to be a miracle, or you squish a cracker on the ground and you watch the ants take the really big pieces, or you watch a bee cover itself with pollen, whatever it is, however you're out there, go outside. Second, I want to encourage you to research. Research is good. Take a deep look at the parts of our world that make you wonder, is it possible that God exists if? How does this work? Science is a friend of God, and we should absolutely not be afraid to dig deep. In fact, Francis Collins, who is a geneticist, and he led the Human Genome Project for many years, he says, I believe God did intend, in giving us intelligence, to give us the opportunity to investigate and appreciate the wonders of his creation. He is not threatened by our scientific adventures. Not threatened at all. Why would he be? He knows every nook and cranny. And the last thing I want is for you to know. Know that God is there. Whether you're looking for him or not, he's there. He's waiting for you, and he's expecting you. And if you haven't met him yet and you're ready to find him, know that he is there, and he is ready to meet you. I wonder if you guys have any questions about that today. Is it possible to believe in creation? What? Where'd you go? Here it comes. Is it possible to believe in creation and evolution? There's evidence for both and plenty of research and literature. I'm wary of anything that suggests not to believe something just because it contradicts the other. I'm asking Lance to come up because, although I know what he's going to say, and I could say it, it would be a lot clunkier if I said it, and I want it to be clear. So I invite Lance, the one and only Lance Birch.
That's really for Bree, because just such a clear explanation of creation and such a great kind of glorifying of God for being a creator. So thank you for that.
So the question.
Okay.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
is it possible to believe in creation and evolution? The short answer to that is yes. I know some Christian philosophers and some Christian personalities who do believe in this. Now, I personally don't believe in unguided random evolution, and I don't think what believers would say would be that either. I don't even believe in what most people would call guided evolution. My personal belief system is that I believe there were unique creation events and then adaptation, and Bree can talk to that after I'm through. But evolution, in some people's minds, eliminates the need for God. Like they say, it's either or. Like the question says, it doesn't, I'm weary of anything that suggests not to believe in something because it contradicts the other. Evolution does not remove the possibility of God any more than the internal combustion engine removes the need for Henry Ford. That's not my quote, that's John Lennox, a Christian philosopher, and I think that's true. Just because you know, or you think you know, how something works doesn't mean that something wasn't designed. My personal belief is that there were unique creation events where God spoke, things happen, and then adaptation following that. Because I know that we've seen that maybe there was canine and now there's Boston Terrier, which is much cuter than just canine. Yeah, thank you for that. Or Frenchie, so I think that there is evidence. There's evidence that animals and even humans were taller. Nutrition and other things kind of change us. I don't think that there's much evidence for a leap from species to species. And so I think, though, that these are the things that Bree said, don't be afraid of. God is the reason for science, and he's a friend of science, so look into it. So I hope that maybe answers that.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it. Did God create other humans around the same time as Adam and Eve? It says in Genesis that Cain got sent out and found another city of people. Can you
sent out
tell me what this says? Oh, sent out. Okay.
And he found a wife out there. So, okay, editor. Okay. So Cain does get sent out. The Bible, from Genesis all the way to the end of the Old Testament, like Malachi, I think, is the story of a particular family. And that family leads up to Jesus himself. And so the ancestry that we find in the Bible that is mainly talked about is the ancestry of the line that basically leads to Jesus. That's why the story of Jacob is told. It's why the story of Ruth is in your Bible. Ruth, a Moabite, comes back to Israel. Why? Because she's going to marry a man named Boaz, and they're going to have a baby named Obed, and Obed's going to have a son named Jesse, and Jesse's going to have a son named David, and then David all the way to Jesus. And so, I say all of that to say that Adam and Eve very well might have, and did, have other children. Okay, Lance, now you're getting into something that's a little bit sketchy. It is sketchy now, and for good reason, but there is good reason to believe that there were other children, and we don't know the time frames here, how old they were, how much time has passed, because it's all different in Genesis. And so there's a possibility there were other people around, but they were from Adam and Eve. It had to have been, because Jesus talks about Adam and Eve in the New Testament. He talks about them as if they were historical people. And he references them. And Jesus, walked out of his tomb after 3 days, and so I pay attention to what he says. So, possibility that there were other people, that's what I think, and that Cain found his wife among those other people. That's all I got there.
Perfect.
Just going to lean on the Bible for that one.
Yeah. Most people that I've talked to believe that God created everything. The most asked question I get from non-believers is the hesitation on how often God is referred to as him. The hesitation is on referring to God as a human, so there isn't any doubt that God created everything, but what is God? Is this me? Okay. He goes off into the shadows. Okay. Um, so here's the thing. I know that you've talked about this before. I don't want to contradict anything you said. That's the only reason I'm nervous. Okay. There isn't any doubt that God created everything. What is God? Oh, gosh. God is everything. And I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. So we refer to God as Him. And that is not because God is male. It is because we look to God as a father figure in our lives. Although we do see in the Bible, and there were a bunch that Lance had talked about on Mother's Day, so I can't remember any of the verses off the top of my head, but where we see God with these qualities of femininity or these qualities of motherhood, like a mother hen, and there were some other examples there. So God is not him, God is not her, but as we rest on God as a heavenly Father, that is, come on over. That is what we relate to.
You're your harshest critic because you're doing a great job. God is spirit. Jesus said this in John 4 to the woman at the well. She says, our people worship here. You guys say the temple's the right place to worship. And Jesus says, God is spirit. And those who worship him will worship him in spirit and truth. He's not biological male. He's not biological female. God himself chose to reveal himself to us as Father to a particular time in history, and I think he still reveals himself to us as Father. There is a powerful idea of protector, of provider, of sustainer that is encapsulated in perfect fatherhood. He also presents himself as a mother hen and also as a mother bear, which you don't want to mess with. And so I think we all know that he's not biological male, not biological female, but he's chosen to give us pictures and that's why I say he, because it's his choice. And I don't relate to anybody based on, like, what do I want to say your name is today?
Right.
You're going to go by Bree, and he's going to go by Father because he wants to, so.
Cool. Perfect. Bree, that sermon was, you're welcome. Thank you. I think that Q&A, I have to say, I answered one of the questions all by myself at the first service. So yes, thank you. I did do that. But I think that it's a great example, and I think especially having somebody up here who is not a theologian, like up here, stumbling through things, right? But that's how the good conversations that we have go. What about, how about, what if, da-da-da. And so I would be much more comfortable stumbling through things if we were like one-on-one having a conversation, right? And I wasn't trying to make a statement to a whole room of people where maybe my nuance doesn't get through to every person. And so I think it's just a good example of like why these conversations are important and why I say like do the research, take it to your life group, take it to your friends, talk over lunch, talk. Because it's in those conversations that you start to dig in and you get to the truth. What is truth? We get there when we do this in community. So I'm not embarrassed. I think it's a good example of what it can look like to have questions like that. But I do appreciate that Lance is willing to help me out because I get a little nervous. Guys, every Sunday I get a report on my phone of how much time I've spent on my phone, basically, over the last week. Do you get that? And does it come through to you on Sunday while you're at church to say, hey, guess what you've done with your week? Today I got mine. It says that I had an average of 4 hours and 47 minutes on my phone each day this past week. 5 hours a day on my phone. But what if we got a notification that told us how much time we're spending in creation, how much time we're spending out in nature? I think, if I'm honest, my time is a lot less. What if you spent more time releasing dopamine by standing in the sun? What if you left the laundry and you left your to-do list and you just enjoyed what God created as a gift to you? What if you went for a hike or you dug for worms? Or you read a book under the shade of a tree instead of inside your air conditioning? I would venture to guess that we would see and be able to better identify beauty. I would venture to guess that we would find God. But I'm sure that we would walk around with a lot more wonder in our eyes at the nature that surrounds us, at the creation that surrounds us. I would venture to guess that we would find more joy. I would venture to guess that as we see those little tiny harmonies all around the world, in every nook and cranny, in every tiny, tiny detail, we better understand the power of the one who created it all. And he created it all for you. None of it is random. It is all a gift. It is all for us to get out and to enjoy. And to see his power, see his logic, see his harmony, see his creativity in every single piece of it. Let's pray. God, thank you that you gifted us such beauty as the world around us. Thank you for showing up in every tiny speck and every giant tree, God. Thank you that you are powerful and mighty. And God, as we go about our day, as we go about our week, I pray that we all remember that you are all. That you created it all and you are there. And God, I pray that for anyone who doesn't know you or is wondering about you, God, I just pray that as they step out into nature this week and as they open themselves, God, that you will whisper to them that you are there, that you will start to reveal yourself to them, God. I pray that our hearts are open to that. That even the tiniest whisper, the tiniest breeze can show that you are there waiting expectantly for us. God, we thank you for this day. In your holy name we pray. Amen.